Welcome to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. This is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. If you're a regular listener, welcome. If you're a new listener, thanks for checking the show out. On today's episode, I'm going to discuss and review the new Adam Sandler film, Hustle. Before I get into that, just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, this is a movie podcast. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That includes Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. You can also get all episodes of this podcast from the website. The show's website is letmebendyourear.com. If you want to email the show, the email is bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. If you can, I would also ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel for the show. That is Let Me Bend Your Ear Podcast. You can also like the Facebook page. That is going to be facebook.com/Let Me Bend Your Ear Podcast. The show is on social media. The handle on Twitter is @BendYourEarPod. That is also the handle for Instagram and for Twitch. And when I record these episodes live, you can watch on Twitch or on the Facebook channel or on the YouTube channel, either when I'm doing it live or after at your convenience. All right, let's get right into the review. So today's film I'm going to review is the new Adam Sandler film, Hustle. Now, if you are a fan of Adam Sandler or know his work or know his pastimes, he is very passionate about basketball. He loves basketball. He plays it all the time. It's something that he enjoys doing a lot. So in this film, he plays Stanley Sugarman, a scout for the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA. So as the film opens, Stanley is, you see his worldwide pursuit. So he's a scout that goes all over the world scouting talent for the 76ers. So there's a montage at the beginning of the film that shows him basically all over the world scouting, players for the 76ers. And he is married to Teresa Sugarman, which is played by Queen Latifah, and they have a nice chemistry in the movie together. So it's nice to see Queen Latifah kind of in a different role. She's definitely you don't really see her that often playing like and I don't want to say housewife, because she doesn't work because he's the scout, but they met because she was an athlete, and they both met in college, or they were both playing college sports. But they have a very good rapport together, good chemistry. So it was good casting to have her in there as well. So I actually enjoyed her performance in the film. And as the movie opens, he's scouting players, and he has been summoned to the Philadelphia 76ers complex by the owner of the team, played by the great Robert Duvall. One of the things I was disappointed in this film, it's not really a spoiler alert, but I thought he was going to be in the movie a lot more. It's basically a glorified cameo, but it's always great to see Robert Duvall. I'm actually probably going to do an actor profile on Robert Duvall. That actually may be my next episode. I just finished the episode, actor profile on Gene Hackman, but Robert Duvall is another one of my favorite actors. But anyway, he summons Stanley in and basically lets him know that his years of scouting have paid off. He's a big fan of Stanley and likes how he scouts, and basically is giving him the opportunity to become the assistant coach under Doc Rivers, who was actually the real coach of the 76ers. And this movie is littered with cameos. I can't even I'll list a couple of people, but there's dozens of current and former NBA players that are in this film. And part of it is the movie was co-produced by LeBron James. So obviously, I'm sure he phoned in a lot of favors of his friends and current players to appear in the film as themselves or as other players. So Stanley gets the job as the assistant coach. But then again, this is really not a spoiler because it's not a major part. The owner dies, and his son, played by the great actor Ben Foster, takes over the team and basically pulls the rug under from Stanley, saying, we need you to go scout. We need you to find more talent so we can get this team where it needs to be. So basically he rescinds the offer and forces Stanley to go back on the road. So Stanley is in Spain, and he's basically, looking to shoot some hoops just by himself. And he happens upon this street basketball game in Spain, and he sees this player named Bo Cruz just dominating, playing incredible. And of course, Stanley is like, this guy is incredible. So as we get into the story of Bo Cruz, you find out that he is a construction worker. He is actually a single father of a young daughter, and he lives with her and his mother, who helps take care of his daughter. And he just basically plays basketball to hustle for extra money. So Bo Cruz meets Stanley. So Stanley talks to him, lets him know he's a scout, and basically pitches Bo to the 76ers. And the 76ers are like, yeah, no, we're not interested. He's too raw. And basically says, look, we have no interest in him as a player. So what Stanley ends up doing is, on his own dime, bringing Bo Cruz to the United States to try to get him a tryout, or to try to get him into the combine. So of course, NFL has a combine, NBA has a combine, where talented either college players or young players show their skills to see if NBA teams are interested in picking them up in the draft, or even after the draft as an undrafted free agent. So that's the basic premise of the film. So Bo Cruz is played by actual NBA player Ronco Hernan Gomez. I'm sure I'm butchering his name. From what I read, I think he plays for the Utah Jazz. I don't really follow the NBA as much as I used to. So other than the huge stars of the NBA, I'm not familiar. But he plays Bo Cruz, does a really good job. He's never acted before in a film. And I can see why they chose him. He's got a natural presence. And obviously he's got the skills to play. And he's very good. And, of course, like I said, Ben Foster is good. You also have, from Saturday Night Live, playing the daughter. So the owner's daughter is actually kind of involved limitedly. And she is on she's in the movie sporadically. And trying to pull her name. I know her from Saturday Night Live, but I forgot her name. Let me see here. Give me a sec. Pulling it up right now with my friend IMDb. Heidi Gardner. So she plays the daughter as well, who likes Stanley a lot. The son, of course, Ben Foster's character, is really not a fan of Stanley at all. Thinks he talks too much and just wants him to do what he wants. So, like I said, that's the basic plot of the film. So this is a kind of a standard, underdog movie. So obviously the guy that's never played NBA basketball, the dramatic tension is, will he be able to get him a spot, in the NBA on the 76ers? How will Stanley's career go? Now, I've read a couple of reviews of the film before I watched it, and the film has been getting very positive reviews. I know a couple of reviews I met were pretty exemplary of the movie, and also, and I think the Rotten Tomato score is really high as well. I will say, honestly speaking, I'm not as high on this movie as the critics are. There was a lot to like about it. There's a lot of funny moments in the movie. When you have Adam Sandler, you're going to get funny moments. You're going to get, good quips. You're going to get, and good acting too. Like I said, coming off of his 2019 film Uncut Gems, which I loved and really loved because of his performance. He was phenomenal, and I think it's the best performance he's ever given in a movie. And he's good in this movie. And, I like his character. Like I said, his rapport with Queen Latifah, his wife, is really, really good. It's probably some of my favorite parts of the movie. But here's the thing about this film. I think really, after it's all said and done, it's a pretty standard sports movie, pretty average to me, to be honest with you. And one of my major issues with it, so there's the training montage. So, Stanley's getting Bo Cruz into shape to get him ready for the combine. They have 6 weeks to get it done. And normally, look, I'm a sucker for these montages. I mean, Rocky, the Rocky films made that famous. And there's, you can go to any kind of sports movie that has a montage of training, and I'm a sucker for them. I think they're cool. I think they're part of that genre of movie. But in this montage where he's training Bo Cruz, it's some of the things, the techniques they used to get him, to get his ball handling and stuff, that was kind of great. But the thing that for me was a real detriment was, unfortunately, believe it or not, that montage sequence went on way too long. Like, I was actually, as I'm watching this, it starts out strong, you see him getting better, you see, the things that he's having him do, and then I was getting to a point as the scene continued, it was like, I was like, all right, this is probably going to end now, move on. And it just kept going and going. I mean, it was really, to me, that montage sequence was really long. And like I said, I'm usually a sucker for those, but it just went on way too long. And that was one of my major issues with the movie. And I think it kind of kind of stalled the momentum, because the movie was gaining momentum as far as narratively, but then that kind of montage sequence kind of screeched it almost to a halt. And like I said, it's not a bad movie, and I enjoyed a lot of it. And once it got past that montage sequence and you get to the combine and kind of the journey of where where Bo Cruz's character goes, as well as Stanley Sugarman's character, it was fine. It was decent. But I definitely don't have the same opinion as like the critics are saying that this rises above the normal kind of sports cliche movie. I actually didn't think it did. I thought it was okay. Like I said, it's on Netflix now. So, I mean, if you have Netflix, I mean, if you like Sandler and you like basketball, especially if you're an NBA fan, you're probably gonna like it a lot. Like I said, there's a ton of cameos. I can give you a couple off the top of my head. You've got Dirk Nowitzki, you've got Shaquille, you've got Kenny Smith, you've got, that's just a couple I know off the top of my head. You have Dr. J, and I gave you maybe 1% of the cameos that are in this movie. There are a ton of them. A ton of, like I said, current players and former players. There's coaches in the movie. Like I said, Doc Rivers plays himself as the coach of the 76ers. You have Brad Stevens. You have a bunch of other coaches in the movie as well. And, of course, those cameos are fun. And, like I said, there's moments in the movie that are funny, and some of the interactions between Stanley and Bo are funny. Like I said, when you have Sandler, there's going to be things that are humorous in the movie. And like I said, he does a great job acting. It's not an issue. I just think the story is just kind of what we've seen before, and I didn't see anything exceptional about it. Like I said, I kind of disagree with what the critics have been saying about it. I think it's a okay movie. Not bad, not phenomenal. So, like I said, Hustle, directed by Jeremy Zagar. I'm not familiar with his work, so I don't know what else he's done. I think Sandler picked him, from what I read, based on another film that he did. And like I said, some good basketball action in the movie. Like I said, the training montage in the middle I thought was way too long. But there was other things to like about it, like I said. So out of my 5 Van Gogh scale, I'm going to go ahead and give Hustle 3 Van Goghs out of 5. So on my scale, that's not a movie I would recommend per se, unless you're a super diehard Adam Sandler fan, a super diehard NBA basketball fan. Then I think you'll probably find some enjoyment in the movie. It's not a movie I probably would I won't revisit it again with a 3 Van Gogh review. But again, if you're into the NBA and into Sandler, you probably would enjoy it. Like I said, it's a Netflix film, so you can watch it, whenever you'd like if you have Netflix. So, for that, I think it's probably worth it if you're a fan, like I said, of either the NBA or of Adam Sandler. So again, he's good. Queen Latifah's good. The actor, the player that plays Bo Cruz, he does a really good job as well. And like I said, there's good acting in the movie. Oh, actually, Jaleel White from Family Matters, Steve Urkel's in the movie as well. I was surprised to see him. I didn't realize he was in it till I watched it. So he's in it as well. And like I said, the great Robert Duvall, which is a very short cameo, as I stated in the plot of the movie. So again, I'm going to go ahead and give Hustle 3 Van Goghs out of 5. And again, that's starring Adam Sandler, Queen Latifah, Ben Foster, and directed by Jeremiah Zagar, or Zagar. I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly there. All right, so before I go, I wanted to talk about the actor Philip Baker Hall. I just read, actually, before I jumped on to do the podcast, that he had passed away. So again, as I've talked about on this podcast a bunch of times, I am a huge fan of character actors. Like I said in my last episode about Gene Hackman, I mentioned how in the 70s, 60s and 70s, you had an era of character actors that actually became movie stars. Philip Baker Hall is definitely a character actor. He passed away the other day at the age of 90, and he is the definition of a character actor. Theater, film work, television work. I'll bring up his TV work, even though this is a movie podcast, because I think if you are a fan of Seinfeld, and if you don't know who Philip Baker Hall is, I'm going to describe his character on Seinfeld, and you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. He played Bookman, and if you remember that character's name, he was the library investigator that was on the case for overdue library books. So if you know Seinfeld, if you watch Seinfeld, you know that character, so then you know that actor's face. So he was that character on there, and actually, I was reading an article today regarding his death, and they had quoted him basically from a couple of years ago, where he indicated he had did that one episode 20 years previous, and he said more than any other thing that he's done, people come up to him because of Seinfeld, which goes to show you the power of TV. When you're on a huge television show and you make your mark on that, no matter how many movies you do, people are going to know you from your TV work. So he was on Seinfeld. He also did other television work, but his movie work was fantastic. He became a go-to guy for Paul Thomas Anderson. So he was actually the star of Paul Thomas Anderson's first film, Hard Eight, and he was also in Boogie Nights and Magnolia. And he's fantastic in all three of those films. Like I said, fantastic actor. He was actually in the great Michael Mann film, The Insider, which I will review for this podcast. I have not gotten to that movie yet. I've seen it. It's a phenomenal movie. It's starring Pacino and Russell Crowe, based on the 60 Minutes piece on the tobacco whistleblower. Fantastic film. So I will definitely review that. But Philip Baker Hall has a small part in that as well. And like I said, he's done a ton of movie work, television work in the theater. And like I said, unfortunately, another great character actor has passed away, which is unfortunate. So rest in peace to Philip Baker Hall. So again, thank you for listening to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. Again, this is a movie podcast where I discuss and review movies new and old. If you want to email the show, the email is bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am recording live now. You can jump on live if you'd like, or you can watch the show at your convenience. You can listen to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. I would ask, if you are a regular listener, if you can rate and review the show. Hopefully you give it 5 stars. The reason we ask is because a podcast like this, an independent one, the lifeblood of getting new listeners and viewers is to have you rate and review. The more rate and reviews that are on a podcast on a particular platform, the higher it'll become available in search results in the event that somebody's looking for a new movie podcast. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. The second thing I would ask, if you see my post on social media, specifically on Twitter, if you could share those, like those, retweet those, that would be great. Again, word of mouth is the biggest way I'm going to get to grow the show. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. So again, this is the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I reviewed Hustle, the new Adam Sandler film. Again, I'm giving it 3 Van Goghs out of 5. Again, I thought the movie was okay. Some of the critical response has been pretty excellent for it. I didn't like it as much as some of the critics did, but it was, like I said, it was a decent movie. I don't think it was a great movie. Like I said, I think there was some issues with it. But like I said, if you're a fan of Sandler and of the NBA, you probably would enjoy it. So again, I'm giving that movie 3 Van Goghs out of 5. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And please check the show out. Like I said, go to the website. You can download every episode. The website, again, is letmebendyourear.com. And again, you can email the show if you have suggestions on movies for me to review, feedback on the show. You can email the show at bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. Again, I also want to thank all the regular listeners out there that have listened to the show. I really appreciate it. I want to thank the viewers that pop on when I record live or are watching on the YouTube channel or on the Facebook channel. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm super appreciative of your support. And like I said, I enjoy doing this podcast. I love it. I love talking movies, and I will continue to do so. I am approaching, or actually I just passed the 4th anniversary of the podcast. So I was going to do a 4th anniversary episode, but the guest I wanted to get, unfortunately, was unavailable. So I'm not sure if I'm going to actually do a 4th anniversary. I may do it. Haven't made up my mind yet. We'll see. I'll play it by ear and see how we go from there. Let's see if I could either get another guest to come on with me, or if I'll fly solo and just do a 4th anniversary kind of celebration. I'm very proud of this podcast. I'm glad I launched it 4 years ago. It's been a source of a lot of enjoyment for me, and hopefully for you as listeners. So again, we'll be seeing you with another episode next week, and I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Take care.